Welcome to OZChris versus Absolute Carnage, week 4 of August that this one takes place in. So we've got reviews of Absolute Carnage number 2 and Venom number 17. So starting off with the main event, written by Donny Cates, art by Ryan Stegman, inking by JP Mayer, coloring by Frank Martin, and the cover by the latter three. So, their prison break to get Norman out and retrieve the codex room, or test him for the codex removing machine that the Maker made, has failed. Norman has been turned into Carnage again by the original Carnage, Cletus Cassidy, and Pete and Spidey escape with Venom donning his wings again that were introduced in the first arc of Cates' run. It's good to see those weren't forgotten. It was just a one-off thing, but they escape as Cletus decides, well, there's still other spiders out there. My plans need to progress even more. I need to get the rest of those codexes. While Eddie has Peter call, Captain America, Wolverine, the Avengers, given that they're also potential hosts, and given the how huge of a threat Carnage places against everyone, they're going to need the backup. And we learn here, and I knew this was obvious, Dylan also has a codex within him. She-Venom, Dylan's mother Anne, Eddie's former love interest, doesn't have a codex. Her body was never buried out of the grave by Carnage, but because her codex is within Dylan, so now Dylan is going to be on Carnage's hit list. So as Carnage spreads his influence, affecting any other symbiote host, visualizing it as the tie-ins to this event. Eddie goes to save Scorpion and Miles from Carnage's minions, but something goes wrong with one of them, and I'll leave it there. Story, I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5. Really good. Good. Progressing really well. Actually showing some connections to the tie-ins. They're not how Carnage is kind of spreading his influence to those tie-ins. Not sure how the reading order would work with them, but they're at least acknowledged. Usually tie-ins aren't particularly acknowledged in a lot of events, but these ones at least are. But overall, the story is progressing really well. The art and the coloring, I'm going to give this a 4.5 out of 5. Really, really good art. Great art, great coloring. The cover itself, I'm also going to give a 4.5 out of 5. Great art, great coloring. Really like this cover. It's a great cover. So on to Venom number 17, Absolute Carnage tie-in, written by Donny Cates, art by Ivan Coelho, Rain Burrito, the color artist, the cover by Kyle Hotz and Dan Brown. So while Venom is dealing with all the prison break stuff at the end of issue number 1 of Absolute Carnage and the beginning of Absolute Carnage number 2, the Maker is on babysitting duty as he finishes the machine that will safely retrieve the codexes out of former symbiote hosts. But because Peter and Eddie have failed to arrive with Norman Osborn, who they intended to use as a test subject to see if it is in fact actually safe and works, the Maker decides, well, let's use Normie. Normie, to his knowledge, only Normie has the codex within him. This actually takes, timeline-wise, this takes place before, in this issue, Eddie finds out that Dylan has the codex, so he only knows that Normie has the codex. He wants to try it on him, but before he can do anything, their location is compromised, and they are discovered by the Life Foundation symbiotes who are working for Carnage. Maker has to try and hold out his own against them. He's briefly successful, but they have the numbers on him, so he's slightly overwhelmed. Dylan wants to assist, considering he knows where the weapons are, but when they are cornered, they are saved by a surprise cameo. I'm not going to reveal who it is. So story, I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5. Good story. Very standalone to itself. It doesn't particularly... while it is an Absolute Carnage tie-in, it is very... The story is contained primarily to itself. So Not necessarily, but I was going to say you don't have to read Absolute Carnage to read this, but considering it is a tie-in, it pretty much implied you'd have to read Absolute Carnage. But the story itself of the Maker, Dylan, and Normie facing off against the Life Foundation symbiotes, it is all pretty much well self-contained to this comic. But if you wanted to know more about the Life Foundation symbiotes, while they're working for Carnage, you can read Separation Anxiety. That's where they appear in. And then there's the surprise cameo who was in a Venom miniseries. But it's pretty. I would say those two things are pretty much optional. As I said, this is very self-contained to itself. The art and the coloring, I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5. Good art, good coloring. The cover, I'm going to give a 4.5 out of 5. Great art, great coloring, really good cover. Even though Venom doesn't face off against the Life Foundation symbiotes and Scream in the background, it's still a great cover regardless. So that is it for those two. If you liked this video, leave a like. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Appreciate it. And I will see you all next time.